I have wanted to be a COO since like very early in my career. There was an individual who was a COO at a company that I worked for, and he was just amazing. And he was a Six Sigma black belt. And I was like, well, how do I get that? Yeah, I want to do all the things. And he's like running the company when the CEO was out. And it was just like one of those magnetic things. And back then I was in HR, I was like an HR manager. And I was like, I want to do COO. And I started looking things up. And so I always knew I was going to be on this path, but life took me in many different directions.
Today on the Second in Command podcast, we are joined by Dr. Melonie Boone, the COO of Edesia Nutrition. They're an organization on a mission to end childhood malnutrition worldwide. Melonie brings a rare combination of business psychology, operational rigor, and people first leadership, having built her career across corporate leadership, nonprofit management, and executive consulting. She's also the author of Heroic Leadership and holds a doctorate in organizational leadership, blending academic depth with real world impact. In this conversation, we explore what it's like to lead a company where the mission carries deep emotional weight and how she manages that while still running the business effectively. We talk about how she transitioned from consultant to COO, the ground rules that set her up for success with that, and why staying really close to the ground and caring deeply about people is critical for operational leaders. She also shares practical insights on tracking team morale across different departments and implementing systems where you can really generate buy-in, ensuring the change doesn't just happen, but really sticks and is impactful with your team. We are here with Melonie. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're so excited about this conversation. Specifically for me, just the work that you're doing is really, really important. And just from a heartfelt space, I've been really looking forward to this conversation. So, for anyone who doesn't know, can you tell us a little bit about the company that you work with and who do you serve?
Yes, so I am COO at Edesia Nutrition, located in Rhode Island. And we actually have a mission to eradicate malnutrition around the world. And so we make a product, multiple products that help to fight malnutrition. One of our primary products is called Plumpy Nut, and it's like a fortified peanut butter. So it has all of the nutrients that is needed for kids who are what we call wasting. And so wasting means that these are children that are near death. And our product, one box literally saves a life. And so every time you see one box, one container, one truck leave, you know that it is going somewhere to help a child in need. And then we also have products for pregnant and nursing mothers as well. We have products for school age kids. And again, like our true goal here and what we fight for every single day is to make sure that no child has to die from being malnutrition. Yes.
Wow, big, big stuff. No, it's no small feat over here. And I
Yeah.
know that when we had connected on the call at the beginning, you had mentioned that this is the work that you have really been wanting to do, and finding yourself at a position at a company like this was really important to you, so much so that you actually relocated your whole family from Chicago to Rhode Island. And so I would love to just hear a little bit about the mission and the drivers for you. Why is this the thing that is so important to you?
Yeah. So, I would say probably about 2 years ago now, because I've almost been here a year. I was going through a serious period of self reflection and a period of like, what do I want to do when I grow up? Pretty much. Right. And I have wanted to be a COO since like very early in my career. There was an individual who was a COO at a company that I worked for, and he was just amazing. And he was a Six Sigma black belt. And I was like, well, how do I get that? Yeah, I want to do all the things. And he's like running the company when the CEO was out. And it was just like one of those magnetic things. And back then I was in HR, I was like an HR manager. And I was like, I want to do COO. And I started looking things up. And so I always knew I was going to be on this path, but life took me in many different directions. Right. And so couple years ago, I was a business psychologist. I was doing some executive coaching, senior team effectiveness work, which was amazing. I graduated with my PhD and I was super proud to be doing work that was centered around the degree that I attained. But something was missing. And I wanted to do something that had purpose and meaning and impact. And then also, my mom passed away in 2020 from cancer. And it just kind of sent me through this thing of like, how do you live her legacy? How do you complete the works that she wasn't able to complete? And she was such a giver. And so I actually started working with the CEO, Navin Salem, here at Edesia as a consultant through my business psychology work. And I was working as her executive coach. I was doing some strategy stuff. I was working with HR. And literally, the first time I stepped off the plane in Rhode Island, I was like, I have to move here. And then I got into the plant and, like, the energy and the people was just so amazing, and I went back to the hotel and I called my husband and I was like, "I would do anything to work there." And then I said, "But that'll never happen, like, there's no role for me, we're in Chicago," and I gave myself this whole list of reasons why it could never happen. And in my work with Naven, she really wanted to develop a COO role and someone who could be like the internal CEO to run the business, allow her to do the work that she does, allow her to go out into the field and actually visit the clinics and the children that we're working with. And so I helped create the job description. And then I wasn't going to apply because I felt like it was a conflict of interest. And so I'm calling like my sisters are my biggest cheerleaders. And my middle sister was like, "You just do it. Like, stop thinking about it. You reach out to her from your personal email, you do it." And I did. And I made it through the interview process and I was selected. And honestly, it felt like it wasn't real because I was able to pair two things, like my mission to have like an impact and help as many people as I possibly can to fulfill my mom's legacy. And then also this drive that I've had since the beginning to be a COO. And so here I sit, very excited, and it's not easy, but it's an amazing role, an amazing opportunity. So I feel blessed to be able to be here.
Thanks for sharing that. It's really it's really cool to hear that journey and the bridging of both of those things. I mean, for me, this has been something that I mean, in a different kind of area where I really feel my heart. For me, it's child sex trafficking that I just
Mm,
it is the thing that if I spend too much time talking about it on here, I will start crying immediately.
yeah.
But I've just always felt the pull to that's where, like, I wanna put my more impact type focus and resources, and so throughout my journey, I've found, like, little ways to do that. Like, I remember at 12, 13 years old when I first heard about it, donating, like, $5 a month, and just doing what I could, but over time, that's been able to develop in other things where I found myself, running a sales recruiting company. We partnered with Tim Tebow's foundation, and we're able to help in their child rescue missions, and they also do work with orphans and a lot of really, really cool things. And now I'm at a point where, like, I'm feeling that pull even stronger that, like, not just like a partnership, but how else can I expand my impact? And there's definitely my own limiting beliefs that come up with that of like balancing
Mm,
career and finances and like what I want to build in my life, but then also this deep desire to go support in this mission. So it's just, yeah, it's bringing to me even just different possibility and openness to how things could look. So I really love hearing your story. And one of the things that stood out to me is just that part that you were consulting and then came into the company. And so I would love to hear what did she originally hire you for as a consultant? Like what challenges was she experiencing at that point?
Yeah, so as a consultant, I came in to help support really around there were some people issues and just to like rewind a little bit and give a little bit of background. I probably worked in every part of an organization, literally by curiosity, sometimes not by choice. But I have this very unique skill set where I have ran HR departments, and that's where I started my career. I run operations, I've managed finance teams, IT, I've done some marketing. I did sales where I learned really quickly that I am not a hunter. That's what they always used to say. Like, you are not a hunter. Like, you can close a deal, but we will not send you out to go find one. I also started reporting to CEOs very early in my career, like before I was 30. And so I've just had all of these different dynamics of like coaching. And then layer in like my education. I love school. So when people say, like, oh my God, you have 4 degrees, what's going on? It's just I generally love school. So I take all of those things and wear all of these different hats. And as a senior partner at the firm that I used to work at reached out to me and was like, I have this amazing opportunity for you. It's a nonprofit. They do really good work. You know, the board and the CEO are just looking for a little bit of extra support for the CEO because the company had gotten to a point where there was just a lot of internal, external pull. So she's kind of being pulled in all of these different directions. And so the coaching really started out with there were a couple of hot button employee issues that I came in and helped support. There was some stuff around procurement that I came in and supported. I did, my assessment with the CEO and help with the development plan. And really, the development plan was centered around how do we move things off of her plate so that she can focus on the donors, the external, the fundraising, not to mention, we're in the process of building a $148 million plant expansion. So there are all of these different things. So I was helping with that and a little bit with strategy. So I was kind of all over the company. I had meetings with directors and different team members and felt like part of the team before I even started working here. And so it was a really great opportunity. And again, I never thought it was going to turn into this in an actual role. But I also have never had a job that I started and knew exactly what I was getting into. You different than you think? Yes, it's always different than you think, but this one I like because I worked from like March through August here before starting in September. I was kind of fully aware of the good, the bad, and the ugly, mostly good, and just beautiful people and an amazing environment. So that's the work I did before I came on as COO.
Well, and it's nice that you were kind of this, like, outside consultant because you kinda get to peek behind the curtain versus, like, when you're getting hired, people can tell you that the culture is good, and they can try to you on how things are, but then you don't really know until you get in, and there is something I recently experienced this with the fractional role that I did is, yeah, you get to kinda see in a limited view what's happening, and it's beautiful that you were able to see a lot of really good things that made you so compelled to send that personal email and fly. What was the first kind of 90 days like? Because I can imagine, especially is I think you said her name is Naven. Is she the original founder?
She is the founder, yes.
Okay, cool. So I imagine there's this really big heart and her vision that is pulling the direction of the business. And then this is often where a lot of founders get caught is they want to be talking to people and sharing the vision and inspiring, but then they get caught in the weeds of the business.
Hmm.
And it sounds like she's really smart and thought that, getting some of that off of her plate from an operational sense would allow her to step back out into kind of the field and the areas that you mentioned. So that first 90 days where you came in and started taking things off her plate, what was the process or that experience like for you both?
So we actually set a few ground rules before I started, which I think was very helpful. And so one of the things we said is like, let's really divide the business, right? Let's have her truly focus on external things. We're building a sales department, which we have a new development and sales chief that started. She's the advocacy, government affairs, communication, social media, all of that external facing stuff, and then I am the internal facing stuff. And I think, like, those original conversations were really good in setting the groundwork for how I started. But one thing we found over the past few months and in the first 90 days is there really is a blurred line. And thankfully, there's no ego, right? So if I have some input about the sales strategy or something like that, there's no offense to her. If she has input, which she does, because she's been doing this 15 plus years, and I can learn from her too. And so when she had input, like we're able to have those conversations. We're able to have some of the tougher conversations between one another. We can like disagree and come back and re-agree or just agree to disagree. Yep. Right. And then it was really interesting. And I will tell you, like, we had a major business disruption in my first 90 days. We actually had two major business disruptions in my first 180 days. So I started and thought like, okay, I'm going to do some org structure stuff and we're going to get people in the right positions. And then the first thing happened in November. And it's like, oh crap, we got to adjust now. We have to address this issue, which stopped production for a little bit. And then we came out of that. And then, like early January, we had another huge disruption with our largest customer who went through some government reorg, and it meant that production had to stop again. And so, we went through this process and we did this amazing strategy in October. We did an offsite with the executive leadership team. We had our 5 strategic imperatives. We were ready to go and we were going to do all of these great things and help as many babies as possible. And then we had those two disruptions happen. So it did require me to shift a little bit. And I'll be honest, I didn't handle it very well in the beginning because there is a lot of emotion around stopping production, right? So most manufacturers, if they stop production, they can make up for it later on in the year. It has a different impact. For us, when we lose time, because we can only make so many metric tons a year, and when we lose time, you really can't make that up. And so I will be honest, and this, David and I had a really good conversation about how I didn't handle things well um, in January because it was very, very emotional for me. And I tend to step back and like problem solve alone. And that created some challenges, right? Because then she's not really knowing what I'm doing and I'm not really sharing. So it was a really good lesson and kind of like a reset for me. Like, you everyone wants the seat at the table or they want to be in these C-suite positions, but you don't really know until you get in it how you need to shift and change. And I kept thinking to myself, like, what got you here won't keep you there is a saying that you hear a lot, and it's so true. And so, even just within the last 60 days, I have been making these adjustments to how I work, how I manage my team, um, how I manage my relationship, how I continue to build trust. We went into crisis mode, and crisis mode doesn't really give you room to build trust with others, but you have to just be intentional about it. And so, through a lot of reflection and taking like honest feedback and really processing it, I've had to change how I work a little bit. But I think it's a good evolution, a painful one, but a good evolution for me.
I really appreciate your vulnerability in that because it can be easy to have the title and act like everything's fine and it's all great and it's this awesome position, but there's a lot of challenge that comes with being in a position with so much responsibility, and
Yeah.
especially in a space like the one that you're in, where there is such an emotional gravity to certain things happening. I'm curious, how long has the company been around?
About 15 years.
Did you I thought that's what you had mentioned with Naven, yeah. So with Naven having been in this for 15 years, what was the advice or the support that she gave you around being able to manage? Because I'm sure it was the first time for her that she's experienced volatility and the emotional, kind of waves that come with that. What did she share with you?
Yeah, so we have a lot of deep conversations, especially on Saturdays. I always say our weekend calls are our best calls. And really, the thing is like, don't retreat. And that's the biggest message that I heard. Don't retreat. keep fighting with me, right? I'm gonna, Naven, she's gonna keep fighting, and she really wants fighters by her side. And so that's an adjustment. And then I also haven't worked in a corporate environment or a business environment for a while. I have been a consultant for quite a few years. I hadn't managed a team. And I'm going to be real honest here. Like, I underestimated what the transition was going to be. I worked from home since 2016, 2015. Now I'm back coming into an office. It's not just an office, but there's a plant. And so I really underestimated what the transition was going to be like. And I am happy that Nathan has given me the grace to adapt, because I know that that can become very contentious. And like the CEO and the COO, the relationship is so critically important, that if you can't have those conversations, if you can't be transparent with each other, if you can't, like, we don't yell, but like if you can't disagree vigorously and then come back from it, they're really, it's not going to be successful for you. And so sometimes you have to like humble yourself and really listen, whether you want to hear it or not, and then process it and then do something with the feedback. So the feedback that I've gotten, I've done something with, which I think is like the most important thing.
Totally. Yeah, and I'm sure from working with you in the role that you were in before with her, she got to see who you are, and at the core of it, I think when you have someone with such alignment on values and the way that you think about things, if there's alignment, most things can get figured out and you can learn and you can adapt. So it's really cool that you've been able to do that. With the kind of consulting background, and I think you said you have 4 degrees?
I do.
4 degrees. How has that prepared you for this role? Like, in what ways did that roll over?
So it's really interesting. And we were talking about this before we started recording, but I did not take a traditional like COO path, which thanks for sharing your story, because I see that you didn't either. Sometimes it feels like I'm the only one. But one thing that I always did is I wanted to make sure that I understood all parts of the business, right? Especially earlier in my career when I started reporting to CEOs. And funny enough, I had a CEO once tell me, I had presented this whole business case and I was super excited because I'm like saving $60,000. Woo, 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 And I show him all of this and he's like, well, anyone can show me the numbers, but what does it mean? And I walked away and I was so angry. I was like, "It means I'm saving you money. Like, what are you talking about?" And it actually wasn't until something that Naven and I talked about a couple of weeks ago, where we're looking at like production staffing and all of these different things. And I'm very numbers focused. And so I'm looking at the numbers. And she's like, but go out on the plant floor, which I spent some time out there, but not enough, right? Because of everything that's been going on the last 6 months. And I was out there on the floor and I'm talking to people and I'm really listening. Like, what are some of the pain points? What are the challenges out here? And it gave me a different perspective on what we're looking at from a staffing perspective. And I was like, oh crap, that's what he meant. Like, anyone, I can show the numbers, right? But there's stories behind it. There's lives, there's nuance, there's context, and all of these different things. And so if I knew where he was today, I would say thank you for that lesson I'm now learning, like, almost 20 years later.
That's amazing.
But, like, that is,
Planted the seed.
yeah, he planted the seeds, but that's what I pulled from, like, all of my experience and my education. And, it's like, how do I be the best me and use the experience that I have to help in a way that, like, makes sense for the business. That's not just the numbers. And I think, like, anyone else in a role like this, you would focus on the numbers, right? Because the numbers may say that to get to a certain dollar per kilogram, that's how we price things, you only need 14 people out there. But then you go out there and you see how 16 people are struggling, and you're like, wait a minute, I can't run 9 lines with like 18 people, because it's just no way. So, like, there's the being open to seeing the story in addition to the numbers is another one of these big lessons that I've learned over the past couple of months. But like the degrees, the education helped me process the numbers. It's really interesting. So I have my bachelor's is in human resource management, and that's where I started my career. I went back and got an MBA because I wanted to report to CEOs, and I just felt like you had to have an MBA to do that so you can talk the talk, right, and know what EBITDA is, which I didn't know for a very long time early in my career. And then I went back and I got a Master of Jurisprudence in Business Law and Corporate Governance from Loyola Law School. And that degree helped me to process differently, to look at problems in a different way. Like when you dissect a case and you're like writing these case briefs, it causes you to just think through problems a lot differently. And then I like capped it all off with a psychology degree
Amazing.
in business psychology. So now I have the people, the human behavior aspect of it. But one thing I will tell you that I have learned as a COO is you have to know when to wear what hat, and you cannot wear them all at the same time, right? And so this is the type of role where I am literally stretched across, I think, 14 or 15 departments. Plus, I am executive sponsor of the expansion. And so, but you have to know, like, when should I be the business psychologist and the coach? When should I be the numbers person? When should I be the person that's honestly just listening? When should I be the people culture person? Because I also lead HR as well. And so knowing like how to show up is really important, and which Melanie shows up for which meeting is really important. So in the beginning, I was just showing up as everything. And really, that's not what the business needed. And so I now walk into things saying, what does the business, what does the conversation, what does Naven need from me in this moment? And then that's how I show up.
Mm. There's a lot there that we could
That
edit. The main thing that's standing out to me right now is the 14 departments. I just thinking about that, I'm like, whew, that sounds like a lot. How do you keep the pulse on all of that?
So it's very interesting. I believe I have always needed to be busy. Like I thrive off of doing a million things at one time. And I think like that is a skill that lends very well to this role. I also I have a horrible memory. So like to help with that, I've implemented things like department weekly updates that I get every week from every department, really showcasing like what are the wins, what are the barriers, what are the decisions that need to be made, what help do you need from me? And then I'm also able to share that with Maven. So even when she's out of the building, she still has a pulse on what's going on too. Another great question that's included is what is the team morale right now so that we can keep an eye on that. And then it's so funny when I tell you I am everywhere and in everything, I am literally everywhere and everything. I have invites to all of the meetings. I show up to the ones I need to. I drop in where I need to. And then I really rely on my team. I think our one-on-ones, I do biweekly one-on-ones with the team, and those are really important touch bases as well. They're 30 minutes. They're like super clean. What's going on? How can I help you? We talk a little bit about their development and the things that we're working on through their growth plans. But you just have to stay really, really connected to the people and the business. And at the same time, I'm also learning the business. So I still do not know how to calculate metric tons to kilograms, but I have a guide for that.
Fully, Philly TBT, be careful.
Yes, yes, yes. But I really try to know and understand the business. And like I just did these amazing check ins with every department. So I worked all three shifts. I spent like 2 hours with each shift in the production, quality, safety. I attended a lovely maintenance meeting, which was amazing because it was a development meeting as well. And I love seeing how the maintenance manager is developing his team. So you just have to be thoughtful and intentional about your time to make sure that you also get your work done. But it again, I thrive in that environment. I am not a sit and just do two things a day kind of person. So
Amazing. The ability to manage a lot of different balls is definitely a skill that is needed in the COO
yeah,
position. And I love
absolutely.
I love that you mentioned having biweekly one-on-ones with your team because I have found that that is like such a key must-have for me, at least in my experience. If I am not meeting one-on-one with the main people who I'm leading consistently, it creates so many issues. And I additionally, I implemented this, like, it's a one-on-one document that for every role is custom to them, and they fill it out and they send it to me 24 hours in advance. And so, because what was happening was I would get on these one-on-one calls and ask all these questions to just finally, at the last 5 minutes of that 30-minute call,
Yeah.
hear what the real problem is that we're trying to solve. And so instead, I was like, what if they could kind of do some of that brainstorming and prep beforehand? And so I'll read their one-on-ones and can kind of come in with resources, or I'll ask other people on the team of like, hey, can you clarify what they're meaning by this? And then you can get so much out of a 30-minute conversation when there's some additional structure and you're consistently meeting every 2 weeks. I think that doing something like that is really amazing. And like you said, keeps the pulse on what's actually happening with your team.
Yes, and then we just recently implemented a really cool HRIS system that allows us to track our one-on-ones, and so we can be in constant contact over the 2 weeks with messaging and putting notes and things like that, and then we can pull it up in the meeting to say like, "Hey, what did I miss?" And we can kind of track takeaways and action items, and that was a really useful tool. So another big imperative for me is technology modernization and transformation. And so, introducing some of these systems to make work life a lot easier, the administrative tasks, especially. Like, no one wants to spend 12 hours doing an administrative task. So, that system has allowed me, I'm piloting it. It hasn't been rolled out for everyone yet, but it definitely allows for consistency with the one on ones. It schedules it for you through Outlook or wherever email you at. So, it makes it very convenient.
What is the name of that tool?
It's Paycor, so we have the full Paycor suite of payroll. They have an ATS or recruiting system. We also have, like, our benefits admin in there, performance reviews, goals. Like, it's changed the way we are engaging and managing with our teams. That was the one of the first things I did when I got here.
Sweet. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I've often found myself struggling with certain tools because sometimes I would think it would fix something, and then we'd implement it. Okay, as an example, we had SOPs everywhere. And so we got to trying to remember what system it was, but some like SOP organizer. And then what happened is we just had this totally different website that I had at, like, another place for people to go check, and I actually just made it worse. And so I was like, "You know what? Like, this Google sheet, even though it's so simple, like, sometimes I think that I need something really complex.
Fancy and yes.
The Google sheet does the job, and I'm pretty sure they're still using that. But then there's other systems where, man, like, you implement it, and it handles so many things, like, for us, one of those was moving over to School, the online platform. I don't know if you've heard of School, but it's SKOOL, because we had our clients in Facebook group, and then we were, like, letting them know that we had call times over email, and then we had some clients in Slack, we had courses in Kajabi, and then when we got on School, it put all of that in one place, and so it's being able to really determine which things are worth the squeeze because there's a cost to change.
Yes.
For you guys with rolling out new systems and things like that, do you guys have a process or just a way of thinking before you make a move on something like that?
We do, and so we made sure we are the most cross-functional company that I've ever worked for in my life. So we made sure that before we implement anything, we are meeting with not just the heads of departments, but people who are actually going to use the system. And we get feedback from them on like the current system, what's working, what's not working. If you had a dream system, what would it look like? For Paycor, we did demos with different groups of employees and managers to see how they felt about it. And the user interface was really important to us, like that employee experience when they're logging in, when they're using the system, and time cards and time clocks and stuff are also attached to that. So we wanted to make sure that employees felt good about it. We're actually doing an SAP refresh. And so one of our IT members just sent an email out saying, like, this is coming. Can you assign a super user to SAP? We're going to have these information sessions to understand how we use it and how we can use it better. So everything that we try to do, and I know people say, like, we're not making decisions by consensus by any stretch, but you need the input from others and you learn a lot because, like, I am not using SAP to put orders in to make sure that it goes to the printer and all of those things that it needs to do. So we have to talk to the people who are actually using the systems to make sure it makes sense for us. And we're not like, we don't want to move just to move, right? There needs to be an impact, a positive impact on the business, a cost savings that doesn't sacrifice like time, productivity, and things like that. So we think through all of those things before we make final decisions on systems changes.
I love that you mentioned making sure the employees feel good about it.
Yes.
Because if they don't feel good about it, trying to get them to use it also
Oh, yes.
creates that, the issue if you roll it out. So yeah, making sure I love that you talk to your team and ask questions and really also like when they see that you care about their genuine input on making a decision,
Mhm.
then when you do make a decision, it's a little bit easier for people to be like, well, they asked me, maybe it's not what I would have done, but like they went and collected all this information. So like, let me just trust. So having those
Yeah.
conversations, I think is really great. And it kind of ties into something you said earlier that I wanted to touch back on, which was you guys kind of keep a point of measurement on team morale. How do you do that?
So literally every Friday by 12 p.m., everyone needs to submit their department updates and they write like a little couple sentences about team morale and what's going on in the different departments. And then we also have an amazing director of HR who goes around and tests the temperature and talks to the employees and does check-ins. It's like really everyone who's in a leadership role is required to do these walkabouts, the check-ins, to talk to the team. Right now, I know it's like hot as heck in the warehouse. So after this call, I'm going to go talk to maintenance because I heard that they had these cooling vests last year. So I'm going to see if we can order those again this year for the team. But I think the people part, especially here, is so important. So I cannot be a COO that stays in my office and goes to meetings and goes home. Like I have to be out. And that's actually tough for me. Does not sound like it, but I am very introverted and socially awkward. Yeah, would it be? No, this is the other Melanie. But, like, I have to make sure that I am intentional about going out, connecting with the team, and it means so much to them. Like, this last check-in where I came in at, like, 4:30 in the morning to be with the 3rd shift, but I actually can't stay up past 10 p.m., so I had to come in early. Like, they were just so appreciative, and they were, like, thanking me, and I'm like, "No, thank you, like, you're the one that's doing the work." So you have to again make sure, as a COO that you're truly aligned, not only with the CEO, but with like the culture. If it's a people driven organization, you need to make sure that you're prioritizing the people, which I have been like really pushing myself to do. And now I've done it, I'm like comfortable with it. I could go hang out with 3rd shift every night and be just fine. It's just like that initial hurdle, but being present, being available, our doors are always open from sanitation all the way up to C-suite. Anyone can come in. I would pan over here, but I created this really comfortable living room type of scenario in my office with nice lighting, and I invite people in to come and talk because that's how you know what's going on in the business. And, we're about 120, 125 employees, and I do try to connect with as many of them as possible.
hmm I remember when we first started doing team offsites because we were running a remote company. It
Mhm.
was really amazing just in my own experience as a leader and my own connection to my team, how, when you're meeting remotely on Zoom and we're talking about numbers and one-on-ones, like there's a level of personal relationship that gets built, but nothing gets built like being together over a cup of coffee in person and making jokes and seeing someone being like, at least this is in a remote work environment. Like for me, seeing someone being like, wow, you're way taller than I expected. You need help. look this tall too. And then like asking, about whatever in their life. There's just such a different form of relationship and trust that gets built when you're really in person with people. So anyone that's running a remote team, like I highly recommend finding ways to get your team together and getting close to the ground. I remember this video, and I cannot remember the company that this was with, but Cameron, I was at one of his COO Alliance events, and he showed a video of it was man, there's probably like 2,000, 3,000 employees in this big building, and the CEO, it was his birthday, and they made a video of him, like, walking into the office, and they created this insane celebration for him, and every employee's, like, standing on desks, and there's balloons, and he's saying hi to everyone and, like, making eye contact, and you can just see how much his people were supporting him, and, like, you could tell that this man has walked through that office and seen people, and you can just feel the energy of that company from that relationship that he's built with all the people in the office, and I think that gets missed a lot of times when we're so busy with meeting numbers, and there's stressors, and people are getting fired, and there's accountability, but just
Yeah.
coming back down to the human connection makes such a big difference.
Yes, and I'm trying to feed off of Nathan's energy. Like she does these amazing bingo events where we'll shut down production and everybody comes in the break room and plays bingo and she hands out like cash and other prizes. And I won bingo for the first time a couple weeks ago. I got $10 and I put it into bagel fund. We have a Tuesday bagel fund outside my office, a little box to put money in to help support Tuesday bagels. And
Say bagels, that's so fun.
I donated it to bagels, but we actually were talking yesterday and she, wants a culture that has fun. And I'm like, me too. Like that is one of my earlier management jobs was at Target and fast, fun, and friendly was like drilled into you as like the team. This is what you have to be as a leader. And if you're not having fun, like you're not doing something right. And so it's great for us to be aligned on that too. So I can do like some quirky, silly thing. What is it?
The quirky, silly things, like, that's totally up my alley.
Yes.
When I was working at Closers, I'm on a all-male executive team. We eventually brought in another woman, but and the early, like, first year and a half, just me and the guys, and being in a sales company, just it was very male-dominated at first, and eventually kind of, like, with other roles, it started to get a little bit more even, but I remember we had it was Halloween, and with my team, I'm like, I was like, I know that the whole company, like the sales guys are probably not gonna be as interested in this, but like I knew my recruiting and operations team and hiring team were like, let's have a Halloween party, bring costumes. And we're all on Zoom. And it's one of my favorite memories to date is having like one of my team members I had sent him because we had made a joke about how he eats like a lot of bacon. And so I had set him for his birthday. Like these are the types of things that I love doing is like finding these little moments that I can drop gifts. I love gift giving, so I sent him a bacon costume, and I had never seen him actually wearing it, but, like, to the Halloween party, he showed up in his bacon costume. I'm just like, everyone on there, and I just remember thinking, like, how cool it was that we could have so much fun and be silly, and at the time, I ran that from 22 to 25, so I'm young, and I'm just with a bunch of other young people, and
Yeah.
same time my team had and Cole, the owner of the company, said that to this date, the recruiting team has some of the strongest culture in the entire company and the ability to both perform really well, hold each other high. You can do both. But
Yeah.
first, it takes the belief that you can do both and experiencing it. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the quirky and fun.
Yes. Yes. She does trivia as well, which I do not do as good at. But
Or that wouldn't be good for me. I'm with you on like the memory thing. I'm not
yeah.
super great with stuff like that. But, oh man, this has been really great. I always love to kind of wrap up by asking, what are you most excited about in the next 6 months, both personally and in business?
So in business, like I am like a kid at Disney with this construction. My mom used to own a construction company when I was little and like I was 8 or 9 on construction sites picking up nails and learning what a drill is and all of that kind of stuff. So, over the next 6 months, we will have a weather tight building of over 100,000 square feet in phase one that I will be able to walk and look in awe of. And, we are really planning for growth, and that's exciting as well, regardless of all the turbulence that's in our industry. We also are running a Children Can't Wait campaign to help with funding. Like $50 literally pays for one box and saves a life. And so I'm working to promote that as well. So anyone who is listening can go to edesianutrition.org and know that your any donation is used for us to help in our mission. And then personally, I'm going to get a social life. So I have worked really hard my entire career and have never had the opportunity to actually just have a social life and have a little bit of fun. And so that is a personal goal of mine. I want to learn how to golf. I don't know what else because that's all I got. Any tips on how to have fun because Melanie has not had fun in a very long time, please send that to me via email. But, I just want to enjoy life, enjoy this opportunity. I do truly feel lucky to be here and to be able to do this work, both our mission driven work and the COO stuff that I do. And so, I just want to keep getting better at that.
Mm. Well, thank you for sharing all of that, and thank you for the work that you're doing and your heart and intention. It is crazy how much need is out there in the world, and it takes people stepping up. So thank you for stepping up and leading something so impactful.
Yes, yes, and now just like one last few words for anyone who wants to be a COO, learn the business and learn all parts of the business. Raise your hand, volunteer, do the stuff nobody wants to do. That's how I got a lot of my experience. I think if you are already a COO, my lesson that I'm just giving to everybody is not just about the numbers, know the story, know the context, know the nuance, and weave that into your decision making. And then any CEO who is looking for a COO, you may find someone like myself who's not on a conventional path that's going to do some amazing things for your organization. So just keep an open mind and have those upfront conversations so that you align early in the role. So hopefully that leads to success.
Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing your wisdom and best wishes with everything you guys are working on, and really appreciate your time.
Yes, thanks for having me.